for that lovely introduction, and for, of course, being so supportive of my artwork and hosting this event here tonight for me. I'd also like to thank the two speakers that are volunteering their time to come out and share resources and help in trying to empower our community with climate change awareness and different ways that we can all act. And of course, I want to thank the big crowd that came out tonight too. Thank you so much. No, it's really great to be able to reach out and have people, come in and show their interest in these kind of areas and be potentially inspired to act in their own unique way. So it's a really beautiful thing to be a part of, and I'm really grateful for you guys coming out. I did write down a few notes because I do get a bit nervous sometimes with public speaking, but I felt like I felt like for me, I really wanted to share a little bit about how environmentalism has kind of come into my life and how it's impacted my art practice. And I think that the more people I meet, it's interesting to learn how whenever you seem to get involved or whatever resonates with you, it really does weave into everyone's life in a very unique and individual way. So I really wanted to share kind of my experiences and just kind of talk about the journey I've been on and hopefully maybe it inspires something within your own. So I started off, well, I'm born and raised in Langley, British Columbia, and I spent a good portion of my life experiencing all of the natural ecosystems that we have here in BC, so a lot of time outdoors. I think that's a very important part of growing up for me because it really fostered a connection to nature at an early age. And I also have spent a lot of time traveling, so I've actually been to 37 countries now, and I think my exposure to other places in the world has really opened my eyes, and it really allowed me to see different perspectives of the world. It allowed me to experience some of the suffering that happens in third world countries from poverty. It allowed me to see a lot of degraded environments that there is real no management for in nations that barely have the funding to support the people, and it exposed me to different scenes that I would not have ever really been able to connect to if I had never left Canada and just stayed in my first world comfort. So I think that that's also been a really big kind of like a paramount thing in my life that kind of influenced my actions today. And I think ultimately there's been a lot of other things that have weaved in and out, but ultimately it was one documentary that was that kind of pivotal moment for me where I was like, okay, I need to do something here, and I can't just continue on business as usual. That documentary is by Dr. Sylvia Earle, who is today's Jacques Cousteau. She's a fantastic lady. She's done incredible marine conservation work, and the film's called Mission Blue, and I would invite you all to watch that film. It touched my heart in a very profound way, and I've watched a lot of documentaries, but it was maybe just the time, or I don't know, but it was the right one for me to watch, and it inspired me to believe that even though I am just a regular individual of no significance, in a political way or anything, that I still had some power and that I could still make some impact to drive the changes that I would like to see. So that kind of set me off on a bit of a course where I started looking for ways to transition my own life to reducing my impact on these ecosystems and to learning more and more about the challenges that are facing the world. And it was really interesting because as I was focusing on this in my life, it started to pervade my art practice. And it was really scary for me because I had this yearning to make work that spoke about what I was, learning and what I was really connected to and what I was really concerned about. But I was petrified to make anything that even danced near the environmental border of imagery. I was scared because I didn't want to anger anybody. I didn't want to get into a challenging conversation that I wasn't ready for. And ultimately, I didn't think I was going to sell any art. And I'd been a full-time artist for about 4 years at this point, and I was making my living. It was a hard push and go, and I was making my living mostly on like birch trees and really accessible, easy traditional photography. And so for me to come up with the notion that I wanted to make something that challenged environmental issues, I was very scared to do that, and it was a very vulnerable time for me. But eventually, that kind of yearning to make that work overcame my fear, and I ended up committing to making a body of work in 2015, which was a figurative series that is really symbolic of my own connection with nature. So it's figurative images, and then they're digital composites, so I've merged them together with different landscapes. Some of the landscapes are beautiful, wild landscapes, and there's a very poetic kind of embodiment of the figure. Others are degraded landscapes, industrialized landscapes, and there's a very emotional, frustrated kind of pose implemented together with those imageries, and that kind of spoke to my own frustrations on how the natural environments are managed and how little say I have in that. And so there was this one piece, and I had my show coming up to debut this series, and I was super nervous, and I had never seen really work like that before either, so I was like, well, maybe there's a reason for that. But I had this one piece, and it was a clear-cut forest. If you imagine a clear-cut forest, not a pretty sight, and then there was a kind of a lifeless, figurative model in the foreground, and she had her eyes covered as if she didn't want to see what was going on. And so this piece in particular, I thought for sure no one was going to resonate with that, and that one might be something that challenges someone to kind of talk to me about what I was doing, as well as I thought for sure no one wanted to hang that one above the couch. But sure enough, at that Incite Culture Pals where I did do that series, that was the first piece that sold. And I was like absolutely shocked. So that was a really pivotal time for me, and it taught me that there is an audience for everybody, no matter what it is you create. You will find your people. And it's something that has brought to me the confidence to go ahead and be authentic to my heart and make what I really feel like I want to make. And the time that I spend in this life, making artwork as a creative that speaks to what I'm so passionate about has, become one of the most beautiful purposes of, my being, let alone my art practice. And in turn, what I've really gained from that is the type of people that are connected to my work. So I've had amazing people that I probably never would have crossed paths with, and other than through the work that I make, come up to me and tell me how they've resonated with the work, and tell me again, in their own way what they're doing in their pursuits of trying to advocate for the environment or implement change. And it's been very inspiring, the people that I've met, and it's really blazed the fire within my heart to keep going. And so I'm really grateful for that, and I'm really grateful for that vulnerable time, and for, I haven't looked back since. And so at this show, I'm debuting the series Behind, which is entitled Anthropocene, the Present I. And this is my most, I think, obvious approach to addressing environmental issues. And where I'm at now in my career, I think it's equally as important when you're sharing the work and presenting, different subject matter that may challenge the viewer, to also present resources. And events like this is really something that I hope to grow on and continue doing, so that when I'm showing works that try to promote awareness for environmental issues, that I'm also pairing that with solutions and resources, and really sharing optimism and hope, because there is a ton of technological advancements and millions of people that are working on really amazing sustainable projects, and we have a huge bright future ahead of us. And I really like to make sure that I pair my exhibitions with that kind of empowerment for my audiences. And so that's kind of where this event inspired from. And I also kind of wanted to, Earth Day gets one day a year, and I feel like Earth Day needs more than one day a year. I feel like, Christmas is one day a year, but it gets like a build up, So I feel like I had this idea where I was like, okay, I really would love to see Earth Month YBR or something like that. And then that's kind of what spawned all of this. Luckily, Sarvanaz and co-curator Allison have been incredibly supportive of me trying to empower community and reach out. This is the first event I've ever organized of this nature. So, this is all kind of new grounds for me, but it's something I would really love to continue doing, and hopefully building on this and trying to create more awareness within our city. Because I feel like Vancouver in particular is a pretty engaged place, because I think a lot of us are really connected with nature, and we kind of love the geography here, and a lot of us play in the mountains or in the forests or in the sea. And I think that there's a lot of room for people to realize that individual actions do add up, and the ripple effect is really inspiring once you start to experience it and see it. And I really hope going forward that I can continue to kind of promote that and share those kind of resources. And so when I was thinking about, okay, well, what can I speak about as an individual, I kind of look back at my own transition to a low carbon lifestyle, and there's pretty much, I was going to do a top 10 list, but then I simplified it even more because it's really been 3 steps when I look back and see how it's manifested for me. And again, I like to kind of reiterate that I'm nobody, special or a saint by any means. I was just someone that's heart got hit with a, really powerful documentary, and it's just been going in that direction ever since. So this is definitely accessible to everybody here, and it's really beautiful the way it weaves into your life. So for me, it started off with awareness, and I think that's a really great place to start. Documentaries are a really great source. We have an abundance of them and great accessibility through Netflix or even local film screenings, film festivals, all that kind of stuff. As well as an awareness, I think it's really important to foster that bond with nature and get out and experience the natural world and allow yourself to really connect. Because I think all the time that I spent, recreation, I also lived in Whistler for a good portion, that really, it's evolved into wanting to advocate for those landscapes that I cherish. And I'm not sure I would have the same passion for it if I hadn't built those relationships with nature. And so awareness is number 1. Number 2 is find alternatives. I think this is a step that a lot of people get overwhelmed by because there's just so much, and at the tip of our fingers we can find thousands and thousands of blogs and all these different resources and things like that. But where do you start? So I've actually put a list together on my blog, and I posted it this afternoon, and I have cards here if anyone would like to take one, and you can just there's tons of links on there. So it's everything from different ways to implement more plant-based foods into your diet, how to purchase carbon offsets if you travel a lot. That's something that I personally am a little bit guilty of, but I found a great calculator by the United Nations. It calculates your carbon footprint, and then it also, United Nations has, and it's linked on my website, a great resource for different projects, a lot of them being in third world countries where you're actually investing into sustainable energy, so wind and power, tree planting, all these different projects. And so you're offsetting, if you can afford to do this or budget for it, offsetting those flights. I actually, when I travel now, I kind of try to factor that into the trip costs, and I offset as much as I can to try to balance my carbon footprint. And I'm really excited about that one. And then a whole bunch of other resources on there. But I think the most important thing is just to pick one. And there is no act that's too big or too small. I know for a fact, even if you started really, really small, eventually it's going to grow into more facets of your life, and you won't be able to, predict that now, but it just seems to organically do that. And the biggest benefit that I've experienced so far, every little thing that I did, I really started off, ocean conservation was my thing, so I eliminated chemicals. That was one of the first things I did. I don't have any chemicals on my body, in my food, or in my home when I clean. And I did all of that purely because I didn't want it to go down into the drain for the fish. I felt really bad about that. And how that's actually, benefited me in the long run is like, I'm realizing now all the carcinogenic materials in shampoo, like sodium lauryl sulfates and all of these different chemicals. And I've watched some, other documentaries that have kind of gone off on, the different, exposure that we have nowadays to deodorants and dish soaps and all these kinds of things. And they're finding out, hey, maybe this stuff isn't good for us. So it seems for me, every little thing that I've done to change my life, even driving less, like my husband, he is riding his bicycle to the North Shore because we share a car. And but that act is actually increasing his health, his physical health, his mental health. We're walking more, we're doing all these little things. And my experience that I think is so exciting to share is that it benefits you in the end. And actually living in a more eco way is full circle and interconnected with increasing your health and wellness. And I didn't do it for that, like that's not my intent when I started, but that's just what's happened. And I get really excited about that because I think the more people that start to increase their happiness, increase their better their mental health, their wellness, their physicalness, you're gonna be more selfless in your actions for taking on greater causes because you're gonna feel better to do so. So I really suggest that everybody starts somewhere. No action too big, too small again, but just see how it kind of starts to transform into your life. That's the third step, is take action. So, I know a lot of people are like, oh, do it next month or next year, but just do one thing. And that's kind of my direct call to action and my conclusion for my talk this evening is I've created a book here. It's called The Hope Project. I invite everybody, if you happen to resonate with anything you hear tonight or anything you've already maybe been pondering, but I'm asking people to put an environmental pledge in the book and then sign your name. And so it's kind of a direct call to action for folks who want to get involved and want to commit to something. But it's also going to be an interactive art project. And I see this as being something that I can use in a public institution down the road where I'm taking this text and I might use it as a typographic artwork or I might infuse it into imagery. I'm not too sure how it'll come out, but it'll look cool, I promise. And I'm hoping that this is kind of going to translate into a big public artwork that inspires hope and it shows optimism and it kind of reveals individual people getting involved and taking part in their own unique ways. And so of course I'm going to have this book out for exhibitions to come, maybe a year or two. We'll see how many I get. I have a show in New York at the end of the month. I'm going to take it and see if I can round up some good pledges in there too. But I think it's a beautiful concept and a really interactive, interesting way to become a part of something. And then maybe 3 years down the road, you want to come back to another show and then you'll be like, whoa, that was my first one and I've just bombed past that now. So I invite you all to participate in that if you would like to. And again, thank you so much for coming this evening. It's been an honor to talk to you all. Thanks for hearing me. Thank you. And then next we have Urji.